started watching the series again, like as a moment of like nostalgia, like, oh, I remember this back in the day. And it was just very interesting, kind of to speak to a little bit what Viz was saying about the other girl who said that she didn't like value, two-parent household. One of the things that I did see is the generational aspect of being young and pregnant, right? It was one couple on there who had 5 generations of being pregnant young, like around 15, 16. Um, and as I'm watching each episode, I was just seeing a pattern of things like that, being that young and being single, or just not having, growing up in a single household, dad not being there, things like that. Um, and on one of the episodes, it had spoke to that. Like I wanted to make sure that, I get married and have my son's father there. And the mom was just like, well, I just feel like you don't have to have a man there. And it just kind of shocked me because I'm like, okay, now I kind of get an idea of what the guys were saying about how, like, what single women keep women single. And I think that mindset around you don't need, you could do it by yourself. You have me here, like that encouragement of, you can raise a child by yourself. I had noticed that as well. But the flip side, the other side of that, that I also noticed is I think the first 2 years is very difficult. What she spoke to, the postpartum part. I think men don't really know what to do. And women at that time can't explain really what they need because they really don't know what's going on with themselves either, right? So that supportive part is very important. But if you as a man don't know what support look like, it's hard to do that, right? So I think that is where, and that's not like a dig or a blame, but I think that is where it's important for men to be around other men to see what that looks like. So if you don't have a man in the house and other men are able to see what that looks like, it's hard to do something that you don't know what it is. The other thing, just speaking from personal experience, was similar to what the other young lady said. When before my husband and I got married, we had our son, and it was certain things that occurred that I didn't feel comfortable in terms of, is he going to be the type of father that I I'm going to need for my son. And in my mind at that time, I was thinking, okay, I got to make sure, I make sure that I'm straight. So just in case if I'm in a situation where that I'm going to be single, that I'm able to take care of my son, right? Recently, we just had a conversation. Now, mind you, we're 21 years in, that he revealed something to me that I never even thought about. Um, that he said, I was doing the best that I could. I had no, like, it didn't dawn on me that that was his best at that time. I mean, we were both very young, right? I was looking for more. It was just certain things that I'm like, this should be obvious. I shouldn't have to ask him for this. And I didn't communicate that specifically, but I'm like, but you know, I needed X, Y, and Z, or whatever, without having to get into detail. But it was just certain things that I knew or thought was obvious. But what he explained to me in our conversation, it was, I was doing the best that I could. I thought I was doing a good job. And you made a decision based on something that didn't consider me. It was about you and our son. But here I am thinking I'm doing a great job, doing the best that I could, and that decision affected me. And it just bringing myself back to that young 21-year-old self, it never dawned on me. And like I said, 20, now my son's 25. So 25 years later, I'm apologizing for something that happened 24 years ago because it hurt my spirit. It hurt me because I just, it pulled me back in that time to know what I was thinking and feeling in that moment, that I had to apologize to him because I was like, I was thinking about me and our son. And in that moment, it did not include you. So I had to apologize for that. So I do think what I think Hank or Viz was saying earlier, it's about one of those standards of like not, what Hank was talking about is communication has to be one of those like bound like what did he say, your standards that you're gonna have to have effective communication, because I think when you don't communicate, it's those, somebody said the saying, it's the conversations that you don't have that leads to the divorce or leads to,
Hmm. Yeah.
so
But mistaken, I find it interesting and it's difficult because if you just stated and with women in postpartum, and women even do this when they're not experiencing postpartum, to where they don't communicate what their needs are, or they don't communicate it in a way for that man to understand it, right? So you just said that your husband felt that he was doing all that he can do. However, you felt otherwise.
mhm,
But until whatever point that was communicated, he didn't know that. He thought he was doing the right thing, right? But women, I think men, and I wouldn't say by default, but at some point, once you get into your 20s, men understand, um, if you're on your menstrual, right? Already your emotions gonna be like this. Even when you're not on your menstrual, this is gonna be like this. So men are constantly doing this juggle for women in order to appease them. So once you do get into this postpartum point, and it's like, okay, I'm assuming that what I'm doing is the right thing because she's not saying that she needs something different, or she doesn't even know what she needs in this point. So in that circumstance, what is it that men are supposed to do?